Welcome to Mac Video Magic Live. I'm your host, Michael Kinney. Thank you so much for being here on a Sunday. Really appreciate it. You know, iMovie is a very capable video editor for something that's branded as consumer software. But it does have limitations, and one of the biggest is its limit of only 2 video tracks. Let me show you. So if we go here, you can see here, this is the iMovie interface. And you can see we have 2 video tracks. We have the main video track and the overlay track. And that is all that you get. However, the overlay track has built-in functionality. It's multimodal, if you will. So you can use it for cutaway shots, which is like B-roll over top of the main timeline. You can use it for green screen compositing. You can use it for split screen, where you're splitting with the main video track below it. And you can do picture-in-picture mode, which is basically insetting the overlay track into the main video track. That's a lot of functionality. The problem is the overlay track can only be in one mode at a time. So for example, if you can't put your overlay clip in green screen and picture-in-picture mode at the same time. So you're limited that way. So that hard limit of only 2 tracks and the fact that the overlay track is only able to be in one mode at a time makes creating sophisticated multi-track video effects in iMovie a challenge. But it's not impossible. In fact, with the simple hack that I'm going to show you, you can create some very cool effects. Let me show you a couple of examples. So here is the first example. So in this first pre-rendering example, I have this graphic over my shoulder, and it's using the second or overlay track in iMovie. But what if I want to add a second graphic on screen at the same time, like this? Well, you can do this pretty simply using Apple Keynote for Mac, but I'm going to show you how to do it using iMovie. So in that example, we had an on-camera with 2 over-the-shoulder graphics. Here's another example. I think you'll like this one. I really like this example. Now here's a popular effect, a talking head on a transparent background down in the corner of the screen. Great for tutorial videos or any kind of learning videos. Now this effect was created using the second or overlay track in iMovie in green screen mode and picture-in-picture mode, all made possible using pre-rendering. Brings back memories of my days in educational television. So that example was a tutorial style talking head shot in the bottom corner with a transparent background. Some pretty neat effects. And I created both of these examples in iMovie using a simple, tried and true technique that's been around for decades. Now, if you work in the audio space, you'll be familiar with these terms: overdubbing, bouncing tracks. Well, in video, we call that procedure, or it's known as pre-rendering. Hands up, how many of you had a 4-track back in the day, speaking of audio? So in video, we call it pre-rendering, and it actually the term comes from After Effects, which is a video post-production software. So pre-rendering. So the concept, what is pre-rendering? Well, the concept is simple. You render out or export an intermediate version or section of your project, then you import it back into your project, and then you add it into your edit, and you continue working. And then you just work all the way through until you export the final project. It's a simple but effective idea when you're working with limited tracks of video and audio, like we are with iMovie, at least with video. And that's exactly how I created those 2 example videos that I showed you. I used pre-rendering in iMovie, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And later I'm going to show you a simple little trick that'll make pre-rendering in iMovie more efficient and more manageable. But before we jump into the content, let's jump into the chat and say hello to folks who are here. And here we go. Let's see. We've got VG Time. Hello, hello. Thank you for being here. And we have 10 Bob. Hi, all from the UK. Thanks for being here from the UK. Appreciate it. We've got Rafal from Poland. Raffle? Is it Raffle or I think it's Raffle. Sorry if I butchered that. I'm terrible with names. It's brutal. We have Patty Sullivan. Hello, everyone. Please let Michael know where you're watching from. Yes, she is my moderator. And so let me know where you're coming from here. All right, we've got someone from Los Angeles. Andy, thank you for being here. And all the way from the great state of Ohio, Cincinnati, Professional Reimbursement Network. Hello, thank you for being here. And let's see. Who else? Brian Model Trains. Big smiles. Thanks for being here. We've got Derek here from Salem, Massachusetts, the Witch City. Thank you so much for being here. We've got Brian from Buffalo, New York, just across the pond from me here in Toronto. Thanks for being here. VG Time is from Connecticut. Excellent. We've got out from Chama, New Mexico. Wow. Great. Tom, thanks for being here. And we have from Centerville, Minnesota, Brad. Thank you so much for being here. Andy has a question just real quick off the top. It's kind of a housekeeping question. Will the full video of this presentation be available later? Yes, the replay will be available later on the channel when this live stream is done, so you can check out the replay. All right, let's get into the content. Let's walk through the first example of pre-rendering that I showed you. And let me just play it again just to refresh your memory here. So in this first pre-rendering example, I have this graphic over my shoulder, and it's using the second or overlay track in iMovie. But what if I want to add a second graphic on screen at the same time, like this? Well, you can do this pretty simply using Apple Keynote for Mac, but I'm going to show you how to do it using iMovie. All right, so how did I do that? Just let me just get this question off the screen. There we go. Okay, so how did I do that? Well, let's jump on over into iMovie, and we'll make this happen. Okay, so here on iMovie, you can see I have my on-camera clip here on the timeline. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in these two graphics, the iMovie icon and this library, iMovie library icon, say that 10 times fast, into this clip. So here, I'm going to find where I want to put it here. So in this first pre-rendering example, I have this graphic over. So right here, when I'm starting to point, I'll just kind of put it over in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the iMovie icon. I'm going to bring it down in here. And so here, when you bring in a photo or an image, this is what iMovie does. It puts the Ken Burns effect on it. If you don't want that happening, just a little quick tip, go up into iMovie, go into settings, and over here, iMovie preferences, see how it says photo placement, Ken Burns. If you don't want that happening, you can choose fit or crop to fill. Usually you'll use crop to fill depending on the aspect ratio of your photo, but I'm just going to leave it as is. That's just a little tip for you if you're freaking out and wondering, why is my image doing this zooming up? That's why. So we're going to take this off of the image, and I'll just go up to do that to the cropping tool. You can see here it's happening. So I'm just going to go fit and take that. And then we can see this graphic has transparency, which is what I want, but I don't want it over my face like that. So we're going to change the mode of this overlay track. And here's the settings right here, from cutaway to picture in picture. And there it pops down. And now I can position it where I want to, and I can even resize it. So I'm going to put it over my shoulder here, and I'm going to stretch it out a little bit so that it's something like this. That's good. Okay, so I want to animate this on. When you create a picture-in-picture clip, you'll notice it automatically has this fade transition on it, and that's fine if you want to use it. But I want to recreate the example, so I'm going to have it animate on. So to do that, I have to use some keyframes. So here, you're getting a bonus lesson on keyframes. So to get rid of this dissolve on, there's two ways. You can just grab the little handle down here and drag it, or you can see up here there's a corresponding little window where it says 0.25 seconds. That's the duration of the dissolve. So either way, if you put this to 0 or drag these little handles, you'll notice it goes to 0. We get rid of our dissolve. It just cuts on now. Okay, so I want it to come on. Let's just see our timing here. Have this graphic over. Okay, so I want it to sort of come on there. So what I need to do now is have this graphic over. I'm going to put a keyframe there, making sure my clip is selected, my overlay clip. Now you can see this little bitty window over here with some weird, obscure symbols. This is the keyframe tool in iMovie. So the diamond with a plus, I know it's hard to see. It's a diamond with a plus symbol is what you use to place or add a keyframe. So we're going to add a keyframe at that spot. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the beginning of the clip here on the timeline. Make sure this is selected again. Drag my playhead down here. Gets a little tricky sometimes. There we go. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click and drag on my little icon here. And I'm going to move it out. Holding the shift key constrains it horizontally. Just another little tip if you want to keep it straight, which I try to do. It's hard to eyeball it. So here it is, just out of frame. Now watch, I'm just going to skim over and you can see it comes in. Let's play it. This graphic over my shoulder, and it's using the second or overlay track in iMovie. Okay, so we've got it animating in. Now we want it to stay on camera or on the shot the whole time. So I'm going to click and drag it out here. And here's what it looks like. So in this first pre-rendering example, I have this graphic over my shoulder, and it's using the second or overlay track in iMovie. But what if I want to add a second graphic on screen? Okay, so that's going to stay on the whole time. Now, here's your issue, right? If I wanted to bring in the library icon and do the same thing from the other side, I can't, because this overlay track is taken up by this graphic. So what do? This is pre-rendering. Pretty simple. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to export this timeline. So I'm going to go up to my export settings, go export file. And we have this here. Now here's the key to pre-rendering. In general, when you're editing in post-production, this doesn't matter what software you're using, you want to preserve as much quality as possible during the editing process. And then when you're delivering the final video, where you're uploading it, that's when you want to compress it down to a file format like an MP4 or something like that. But when you're editing and you're doing different processes in editing, you want to maintain as much quality as possible. So having said that, when we export this video, 1080p, that's what it is, quality is set to high. I'm going to set it to best, ProRes, the best quality I can. And for compression, I'm going to switch this from faster to better quality. So this is max quality in iMovie, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to export this. I'll go next, and I'll just put it here, and I'll call this iMovie icon pass pre-render. Oops. If I could spell pre-render, and I'll put it there. And so you can see it's rendering it out. It's very important to label your pre-renders, label your files so you know what's going on, because if you're going to start doing a lot of these, it's easy to get confused. So, label so you know what's going on and what part of the process you're in. Okay, now that's rendered out. Now what I can do now is I could delete all these clips here and bring in my pre-render and do my next step. But I'm of the mind, I don't know if you're like me, but inevitably you get down the line if you're creating something and you go, oh, I don't like that. I want to change it. But then you have to sort of re-engineer everything. So what I like to do, just my practice, is I keep every stage as its own project. So I'm not going to delete this. I'm just going to create a new project. So I'm going to go up here to projects. And I'm going to hit the plus, and I'm going to create a new movie. And then I am going to, I guess I can name this. I'll name it right now. So I'm going to call this, we'll call this iMovie Add Library Icon Pass. I know that's kind of wordy, but it kind of, for me, it makes sense, so I know what's going on. You'll find your own way to do that, and I'll hit OK. And so here we have it right here. So we'll open it up. And now what I'm going to do, go to my video clips section here. See, I notice I have video clips and graphics. Keep yourself organized, very important. I am just going to go over to the Finder and just grab that clip that I rendered out, my pre-render. And it helps when you remember what it is. So here we go. And I'm click and drag it in to my video clips. And there it is. There it is. My first, so this is my pre-render. This was my first pass when we added the iMovie icon. So I'm just going to click and drag this and put it into the timeline. You can see here. So in this first pre-rendering example, I have this graphic over my shoulder, and it's using the second or overlay track. Okay, so now the next step is, you can probably guess, we're going to add in, I'm going to go to my graphics event, and we're going to add in the library now. So let's find the timing on this, where we're going to overlay track in iMovie. But what if I want to add a second graphic on screen at the same time? Hold on a second there. Like this. Okay, so like this. So just as I kind of bring my hand up, I want the library icon to animate on, just like I did with the iMovie icon. So I'm going to click and drag and take my library clip, and I'm going to drag it out all the way to here. And you can see there's that Ken Burns thing again. So we're going to go up to the crop, and I'm going to go fit and check mark. And here it is over my face. So now we're going to go up. You know what's going on by now. I'm going to go here, go picture in picture. Boop. And so I want this to be the same size as the iMovie icon. So I'm just going to drag it over here just to size it up, and just click and drag like so. Kind of snaps a little bit there. There we go. So I want it to come, I don't know, around here, let's say. Okay, so same deal. We're just going to keyframe it on. So I want it to come on like this. There. Okay, so I'm going to now place a keyframe for this graphic, the library graphic. Picture in picture, selected. Click on it, select it. Make sure you're selecting things, because sometimes things don't pop up in this interface and you have to click on things. Add the keyframe here. All right, and then we're going to back up our timeline, our playhead, sorry, to the beginning. Just so we see the graphic, you can see it's just off. I'm going to go up a frame here. It's going to be a little fiddly. Oop, come on. You have to select it, and I'm just going to bounce it back manually using the arrow keys, not to torture you here. So it's just off now. Oh, you notice the one thing I did, the mistake I made? I didn't take off the dissolve. That's why everything was kind of weird. So I'm going to zero it out. No dissolve. Now it just cuts on. That's what I want. All right, so we're back in business here. We've got that keyframe. Just make sure. Oh, one thing here with the keyframe, if you're wondering where your keyframes are, these little arrows will take you to the next and the previous keyframe. So I'm just going to click, and I can see that my next keyframe is there, which is what I wanted. And so now I'm going to take this back, click, and I'll use my arrow keys just to bring it back on. Okay, now click and drag, holding the shift key. Oops, there we go. Just dragging it off stage there. And let's see what
screen
this
at
looks
the
like.
same time like this. Well, you can do this pretty simply
Cool.
using.
All right. So now we have that. So now what we do is you would just export this. You would just export it out. Now I don't have to do it. You can see what the final looks like. So
So
if I
in this
play
first pre-rendering example, I have this graphic over my shoulder, and it's using the second or overlay track in iMovie. But what if I want to add a second graphic on screen at the same time, like this? Well, you can do this pretty simply using Apple Keynote for Mac, but I'm going to show you how to do it using iMovie.
So that there it is. There it is. So then if this was your final video, you would just go up and go export file. I'm not going to do it, but I'll just show you. This time I would switch it back to high, and I usually use better quality. This will give me the H.264 file that places like YouTube likes. And that's how you would render out your final video. So that is how pre-rendering works. And that's how we would pre-render those different passes to create that animation. And you would just repeat the same process for each element that you want to add in to your project. So I hope that was clear. So I'll take some questions now about that, about the pre-rendering. And I can see we got a bunch of questions. I'm going to switch back over here to the main. And let's see, what do we got? Happy Sunday. Looking forward to some helpful tips from Michael. I like that he doesn't rush through the details. So hopefully I didn't rush through those details. But the concept is pretty simple, right? It's simple and effective, and you could say it's kind of brute force, but it works. And you just remember, just when you're making your pre-renders, you're exporting them, max quality, max quality. All right, let's see what else we have. Any questions? We've got more greetings. Frank from Germany, thanks for being here all the way from Germany. All right, great tip. So I guess it was clear. Excellent, excellent. Glad it was clear. So let's jump in to, oh, here comes somebody. Managing files. Andy. It was very clear, but I would love to know more about managing files, projects, and memory. I find myself out of RAM after working with iMovie for a while. Andy, did you see my last video from my last stream? I talked all about iMovie and its library and projects and events and how to manage and set up projects so that you're not taking up a ton of space on your drive, and it'll help iMovie run faster and more efficiently, and also help keep you organized. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. It's on the channel. I think it'll answer a lot of your questions. There's also a video version of that. There's an upload as well, so you can check that out. Yeah. All right, let's see. How long have I been using iMovie? Well, let's see. I got my first Mac in the 80s. There was no iMovie then. Well, iMovie came out in a different version, and I started using that one. So basically since the beginning. And then it kind of changed into this magnetic timeline version. So I've been using Timeline. I've been using iMovie for quite a long time, as well as Final Cut Pro. And they're very similar. It's kind of like, if you follow the development of Final Cut Pro, the current version, it actually started pretty much as iMovie. And then they started building pro features onto it. So iMovie and Final Cut Pro share a lot of, they share DNA. So there's some features in iMovie that you'll find in Final Cut Pro, which is very cool. Why do you think Apple omits features like a second video track? I think because they want people to buy Final Cut Pro. I think that's it. And I think also, Apple's known for keeping things simple. And I think what they did with iMovie is they kind of tried to predict what people using the software would want to do, right? I'll admit, I'm kind of pushing iMovie as a professional. I don't think they designed it that way. I think they designed it for, consumers to put together home movies and things like that. Because every tutorial and example you see, they're doing home movies. Me as a professional, I see the features and I'm trying to push it into sort of that pro realm. And so I think by design, they just limited it to keep it simple and also not to cannibalize users from Final Cut Pro. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh, VG Time, Super Chat. Thank you very much for the Super Chat. Is there a way to do this in the same timeline by removing only a section? You're getting ahead of yourself, VG Time. That's the tip I'm going to show you later on, is how to do it with just taking a section. So good question. And I'm going to answer that later. Very good. All right, let's see what else. The shift drag thing is a revelation. Yeah, it's kind of if you've used other, I guess, graphics programs, it's fairly standard. Shift constrains the move laterally, or I think also vertically. But yeah, it's a lifesaver when you're trying to line stuff up like that. Okay, if you have general sort of video questions or general iMovie questions, save them for later for the open Q&A. I kind of want to just get through this, so if you can keep your questions focused on the stuff I've shown you so far, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Okay. All right, let's jump into the next example. This one I really like. I really like this example. Let's play it again so you can remember how great it was.
Now here's a popular effect, a talking head on a transparent background down in the corner of the screen. Great for tutorial videos or any kind of learning videos. Now this effect was created using the second or overlay track in iMovie in green screen mode and picture-in-picture mode, all made possible using pre-rendering.
Hello and welcome to Geography Giants with your host, Michael Kinney. Sorry, it just reminds me so much of my days in educational television. So that green screen effect, it's the same pre-rendering principle at work, but we have the added complication of green screen, but it's still pretty simple. So let's jump in and look at that one as we head on over to iMovie. Okay, so I'm going to switch projects here. Get on over to my green screen project and look at my rushed green screen shot. You can see shadows and stuff. Not the best green screen, but iMovie is really good at doing green screen. So anyway, here is the green screen setup here, this project. So there's me, full frame on the green screen. And then below me, if I just bring this over, you can see the map, our educational map. It literally says educational. And you can find that in the background section here. There it is. There's a different educational map. But there's a bunch of backgrounds that you can use, if you weren't aware, here in iMovie. All right, so let me go back to my video clips here. Okay, so I have the green screen, but I want to be down in the corner and I want to knock out the green. We have a dilemma again, because the overlay track can only do one thing at a time. One thing at a time, but we want to do two. So here's where we use pre-rendering again. So the first step is I'm going to position myself. I'm going to shrink myself down and position myself. And to do that, I'm going to use picture-in-picture. So with that green screen clip selected, go up here to the overlay settings and switch to picture-in-picture. Boop, there I am. So now I'm going to click and drag myself down here. And I'm going to just bring myself a little bigger here, right underneath the Indian Ocean, like so. And again, this picture-in-picture has a little fade here. So I actually like using this fade to position. This is a little trick. If I want to position myself, right? So I don't want to be over these words. I'll just do this. Also, just another thing, you see how it snaps? If you don't want that snapping, hold down the Command key while you're dragging and it gets rid of the snapping, turns it off. Just another little tip. We're full of tips today. So I'm just going to put myself a little bigger here. Okay, now I'm going to take this dissolve off because in the final video, this dissolve looks like I'm a ghost appearing on the map. So I don't use the dissolve, so I'll take it off. That's why I animated myself on. So here I am in my spot.
Now here's a popular effect, a talking head on a transparent background down in the corner of the screen.
All right, so that's where I want to be. Now here is the magic trick. Magic trick. I'm going to go into my backgrounds here, and I'm going to go down and grab the green background. I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to place it over, hold it over the map background, and you can see the little plus sign. That means I'm going to get a choice when I release. Okay, what do you want to do? You want to replace this? You want to replace it from the start, place it from the end, insert, cancel. I'm just going to say replace. And there the map has been replaced by the green background. Now I'm going to click and drag this out to cover my on camera. And there I am. Now we're going to take this, we're going to pre-render it, and then we're going to knock out the green. Now you can see there's two different green colors. This is my crappy green screen job here real quick. And this is green. And don't worry though, we're going to make this work. iMovie is so awesome when it comes to green screen. First, we're going to pre-render. So I'm going to export this out. Excuse me. Export file. Max quality, ProRes best, switch faster to better quality, 1080p. Next. And I'm going to call this green screen pip positioning pass. And I'll just call it pre-render. Save. And away it goes. All right. So there we go. So what we're going to do now is I am going to start a new project because again, I could delete these clips and start again. But again, I know what will happen is I'll look at it and go, you know, I would like to be over a bit more or a little bigger. You know what I'm talking about. You creatives know what I'm talking about. So I like preserving each stage so I can go back and fix. So I'm going to go back and create a new project. Create new movie. And I'm just going to name this right away. And I'm going to call it Green Screen Pip. Oops. For picture in picture. That's a short form for picture in picture. Final. And I'll click OK. And I'll double click to open it up. And so now I'm going to go back and get that map background again because we want to be on top of the map. And here's my educational map. Oh, it's a different one. So not a problem. I could adjust that, but I'm not going to go into doing that. Oh, I see. Here's the educational still I used. That's the one. Okay. Here's another trick. Shortcuts are really important when you're editing because editing is already repetitive and tedious for a lot of people. So the more keyboard shortcuts that you learn with any software, including iMovie, the better. So I clicked to select that background clip, the educational still. So I'm going to hit the E key, and it just places it on the timeline. So when you hit the E key, it'll place whatever clip you have selected and place it at the end of the timeline. So if I had another clip there, that map would go after that clip, but it's a cool little shortcut. All right, so here's our map. And there's that Ken Burns thing again. So in this case, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select crop to fill because you can see these black bars. This map isn't the aspect ratio is off from the video, the video that I want to create. So I'm going to go crop to fill, and it just crops it there, and that's fine. Gets rid of the black bars. All right, so here's the map. Okay, let's go back to the media section, and now we're going to bring in that pre-rendered green screen footage. So I'm just going to go over to my Finder over here. I don't want to take up the screen there with it. All right. And let's go into pre-rendering. And here is green screen pass. That's why it's important to to pre-render to name things. Here it is. Drag it in, and there it is. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to click and drag and place this over top of our map. You can see it goes way out here. It's way longer than our map. So to zoom, I guess zoom out on the timeline, another keyboard shortcut is Shift Z or Shift Z, depending on where you're from. Excuse me. So here's our green screen clip, and I'm just going to click and drag on the map to bring it all the way out here. Okay. Now it's time for some green screen magic. Okay, so I'm going to select my green screen clip and go up, change it from cutaway to green screen. Boop. Pretty good job, but you can see we still have an issue here. That's because of the different shades and hues of green. Hues of green? Shades of green. Tints, shades. Okay, so we can clean it up here, this cleanup section here at the top. I'm going to grab this little eraser icon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag across this area to get rid. You can see it changing. Bam. Just like that. Amazing. All right, let's play this and see what it looks like.
Now here's a popular effect, a talking head on a transparent background down in the corner of the screen. Great for tutorial videos or any kind of learning videos. Now this effect was created using the second or overlay track in iMovie in green screen mode and picture-in-picture mode, all made possible using pre-rendering.
Okay, so just to, make it like the example, I'm going to animate myself on. I mean, if why not, right? So, actually, I should have done that in the previous step. See, there you go. Here's why you have to keep things organized. I just pop on for this, right?
Now here's a popular effect.
That's fine. But if I want to animate myself on, I would go back to that project. I'll just show you. That's good that I did this on purpose so you can see why keeping your stages is important. So now I'm like, oh, wait a second. I don't want to pop on. I want to animate on. So here's where I would do the animation, right? So if I started talking here, because we're in picture-in-picture mode, I'll just do it real quick, just animating on so you can just see. Okay, and then we'll go here. Let me just do it like this. And then I would click, drag myself, holding the shift key off, and there I go. And so I would do this.
Now here's a popular effect, a talking head on a transparent background down in the corner of the screen.
So that's why I could say I did that on purpose for instructional reasons, but it wasn't. But it's a great point to show you why you should preserve each stage when you're working, right? That's why. So you can go back and adjust. Anyway, that is our final.
Now here's a popular effect.
And so what you would do here,
head on a transparent background down in the corner of the screen. Great for tutorial videos or any kind of learning.
Now, wouldn't it be great if I could just dissolve myself on here? Unfortunately, you can't add transitions, as far as I can tell, to the overlay track in iMovie, which is a bummer, because then I could just dissolve myself on here. But watch, I'll try. See, it won't let me. It wants to go down to the main track. So that's why you have to kind of keep track and keep those stages, preserve those stages so you can go back. But anyway, you get the general idea here.
Now, here's a popular effect.
So that's pre-rendering. It's a slightly different use of it, but it's another way to use the concept of just doing different stages, rendering out different stages and bringing them back into your edit. So that is the green screen example. I really like that example. And again, I love iMovie's green screen. So yeah, a slightly different use of the pre-render from the first example. Not so much repeating elements, but just using different overlay track modes at the same time, which you can't do otherwise. So there you go. I hope you're starting to see the potential of pre-rendering for your projects. It's simple, excuse me, but albeit brute force, as I said before, a brute force method, but it works. It works. But you saw, again, I'll repeat it again because I think it's important as a video editor and as a creator. Oftentimes you're changing your mind and you want to do something different. Preserve your stages. Make different projects. All right? All right, is there any more, if there are any questions for this section that I did, I should say? I know there was a lot there. It's very, excuse me, technical. So let me know in the chat. So I go looking at the chat here. Let's see. Have Final Cut Pro, FCP, Final Cut Pro is so confusing to me. I have had it for 2 years and only used it once. Yeah, it's got a lot of features. It's for professionals. And honestly, I have this thing about software, particularly creative software. You'll use 20% of the features of the software 80% of the time. That's been my experience, and I've been using video software for decades. And that seems to be, it's the same with Photoshop and 20% of the features 80% of the time. So if you're sitting there with all these things that you're not going to use and they're confusing on top of that, it's discouraging. And I know I get comments from people who are Final Cut Pro users, and I'm a Final Cut Pro user for like other gigs and things like that. Well, you can do that easily in Final Cut Pro. You can do that, and it's got this. And I understand, but if you're not going to use the software, no matter how powerful it is, it's useless, right? You have to use it. And then you have to use it at a certain level that you're able to create what's in your head to make your vision come alive, right? And so if it means a simpler piece of software and you have to sort of go through these steps, it's a little bit of a grind to get there. You have to make the decision if that's okay for you. But I totally understand Final Cut Pro. Have you ever tried After Effects? Yeah, I learned After Effects back in the early aughts. It took me a good year, a solid year to learn that software. It's amazingly powerful, but it is very complex. There is a lot going on in there. It took me a good year to figure it out. So it's not for everyone. Let's see what else we have here. As an oldie, I struggle with the tech these days, which is why I like Apple products. Yeah, it's just, I don't know if it's so much about being old. I think it's more just we don't have a lot of time, particularly as we get older. I'm older. I've got a family. I got other obligations. I don't have a ton of time, to do a lot of things and run a YouTube channel. So anything that I can sort of jump in and do and get done what I need to get done fairly efficiently and quickly, and I have a good control over, that's what I like. And if you've seen the trailer video for my channel, where I explain all the wonders of iMovie and Keynote and QuickTime Player and what you can create with it, and then at the end of it, I kind of reveal a behind the scenes that I made that entire video using iMovie, Keynote, and QuickTime Player. And it worked great. It worked great. Let's see what else. Yes, yes. Uh, Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You know, I, I don't see myself so much as a teacher as somebody who's a fellow creator who's kind of just maybe a couple steps ahead of people. And I'm taking what I find out and I'm sharing it with you so that you can, not make the same mistakes I made or, it saves you some grief. So I appreciate that. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, we have a super chat. Thank you so much. Oh, a super sticker. Shiba Dog shaking his hips saying thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. So let's jump back into our content here. So before we wrap up, excuse me, I have some caught in my throat here. Before we wrap up our content portion of our day here and jump into some general Q&A, I want to quickly show you that simple trick that was referred to earlier that'll make the process of pre-rendering an iMovie more efficient. So if you've been paying attention, you would have noticed that, this pre-rendering process involves exporting ultra high. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop for a second because I'm going to cough. Sorry about that. A little dry in here. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying. So you've noticed that this whole pre-rendering process involves exporting ultra high quality files, which tend to be really big, gigs and gigs big. So you want to reduce that. You want to reduce the size of your pre-rendering files by only really pre-rendering the portion of your timeline, your iMovie timeline that you need to, right? So how do we do that? In Final Cut Pro, that's not a problem, right? You use the range tool, you select a range of your timeline, and you can go up and export that range. That feature's not in iMovie, so we got to do another hacky way to do that. Let me jump over to our tutorial here. And oops, I just turned myself off. Boop, I'm back. Okay, so let's go back here to our projects. And here's my pre-render section. No, that's not it. Add, move icon, pre-render a section. Oh, this was the pre-render a section. There we go. Sorry, I was on the clip in the bin and it confused me there. Here we are. So let's say, that example we had where I had the two icons coming on. Let's say we're doing
This first
an
pre-rendering
on-camera
example, I have this graphic over my shoulder, and it's using the second or overlay track in iMovie.
And let's say here, I just want to have those icons come on in only a section of this clip. I don't want it coming on the beginning. And then I want it only going to go over maybe to here.
This.
So this clip is only 20 seconds, so we could pre-render the entire thing. But what happens if, for example, I don't know, you had a longer clip, a longer on camera or something, and you wanted to do some pre-render and animation work? Really simple to do. So let's say I just want to take a section of this clip,
iMovie.
I would find the section, and I'll just do it here just using this. I'm going to hit M to place a marker there. You can see the little purple marker. Very useful. A lot of people don't use the markers in iMovie. Very useful for me.
I'm like this.
And then at the end of that clip, I'll hit the M again. So let's say that's the section. And let's go back to our graphics. And I'll bring in the iMovie here. And here we got that Ken Burns again. Get out of here with the Ken Burns. And so we want that to come in. I'm going to switch that to picture in picture. You know the drill by now. bring it in here and say, I want to do this. Okay, but I only want this section. I don't want to do that, pre-render this entire thing. Well, in this case, what I would do is where the marker is, my playhead snaps there. I would select the main clip and then shift select the overlay clip here. Bring my playhead back to that spot on the marker. Actually, it's easier just to do this. You can just do a selection like that. Place the playhead there, and then Command B splits it right there. And then I do the same thing over here, making sure, and that splits that. I could just split this clip. I'll just do that, actually. Didn't need to split the top one. So here we are. So let's say, okay, now I just want to pre-render this. So what I would do, or what you can do, is you can do a shift select here. Now you can go Command C to copy those clips. And then I'll go back up here, create a new project, new timeline, make sure my playhead is in there, click to select the timeline, Command V, paste the clips. And now I can do my animations and do whatever I need to do here, and then export this timeline as a pre-render, bring it back, and do the same thing as I demonstrated earlier. But now I only have that section. And then when I was done that section, excuse me, you would just go back to that project where you took the section out. Let me just make this section first pass. Then I just go back to my timeline where I started, get rid of this, delete these two clips, import my pre-render, and pop it in. So that's how you would just pre-render a shot. So essentially, just to reiterate, you would, and usually you're pre-rendering a shot. You're not usually cutting into a clip and doing it. I just showed you a really complicated way just to sort of have the concept hit home. But usually you'd be copy pasting a clip. And so that's what you would do. You would just copy the clips that you want to do the pre-render and stuff, open a new project, paste them in, and away you go. I hope that made sense. I hope that made sense. Let me know in the chat if that made sense. It's copy paste into a new project, and that's basically how we have to do it in iMovie. we gotta work a little harder, but it's simple. It's simple. So let me know as I go into the chat here. Let's see. Going here. Thank you for showing the eraser cleanup. That was great to know the different shades of green. Yeah, that's a problem with green screen. It's really, really difficult to light a green screen like perfectly. It's really difficult. You can do it, but it just takes a lot of finessing. And thankfully, iMovie, takes care of that for you with the selection tools. So it's very cool. It's very cool. All right, so that's basically how, just to reiterate, that's how you would export a section of your iMovie timeline for pre-rendering, or just for exporting a section of your timeline in general, because again, you can't do it like you can do in Final Cut Pro. Again, it's a bit of a brute force technique, but it works. And again, just to remind you, pre-rendering can really eat up drive space. So try using only, using it only on the sections of your timeline that you need to, just to save space on your drive, because file size management can be a real issue in iMovie. So you may want to check out my video on how to set up and organize your projects, your iMovie projects, for the best editing experience possible. If you haven't already checked out that video, check it out. So there you have it. So now I'm going to open things up to a general Q&A section time. So if you have any video questions, throw them at me. I'm going to go into the chat now and and see what's what. See what's what. Thank you so much for being here, by the way, again, just on your Sunday. Let's see. Let me go back up here. Animation clip. Can you create a virtual green screen with your animation clip? I don't know if I'm understanding that question. Can you maybe give me a few more details on that? Let me see what else here. Yes, you want to try. Yes. Thank you, Michael. I now want to try these tips right away. Yeah, it's it's just little things that people need to do, and that's kind of how I focus my content, right? I try to think about what are people trying to make based on my experience. I try to show them how to do it with just iMovie and Keynote and QuickTime Player. Okay. You can do green screen background in Keynote. Yes, you can now. Yes, you can now. That's why I mentioned Keynote. It's probably an easier time. The steps are a little different. And it's interesting because Keynote with every iteration is becoming more like iMovie. I figure eventually all three of those applications will be merged into a super app. I can dream, can't I? Let's see what else. Yes, makes sense. Good. I'm glad it makes sense. Yeah, copy paste. It's pretty simple. Yep. Hey, Shelly's here. Hey, Shelly. Thank you so much for being here. Shelly is a fellow creator, and if you haven't checked out her channel, I highly suggest you do. She does a lot of great YouTube education stuff. Thank you so much for being here, Shelly. Appreciate it. Let's see. Oh, yes, please do. Let me put this back up. Yes, please do. Thank you, moderator. Thank you for that. Hey, all right. Spidge, thank you for the super chat. Great stuff. Keep them coming. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the super chat. All right. Model trains, Brian's model trains. Go get yourself some lunch. I'm thinking the same thing myself. You don't have to import. Because in Final Cut Pro, you don't have to import your clips to the library, but it's very similar. Yeah, you don't have to put it in the library. You can put your clips externally in Final Cut Pro. So you have a choice. You can put in the library if you want to, or put them on an external drive, like we used to with like Adobe Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro back in the day, the first version. But that danger, and I've run into it a lot of times, is that drive where you have your media can get disconnected from the application, and you got to go find. I mean, it's a lot easier to do it now in this version of Final Cut Pro than it used to be, but there's always that danger. All right. Thank you, Michael. I'd love to know your process when it comes to creating the framework of a video so that content animations blend smoothly. Well, that is a subject for another live stream, and I will make a note of that. So maybe we'll do another one. We'll do a separate one on that. But thank you. That's a great suggestion. Does it always be green or blue screen, or can it be? It can be any solid color. It's a color key. It's what it's called, really. But with iMovie, though, it doesn't. You can't choose a color. It's either blue or green. That's it. You don't have the controls like you would in Final Cut Pro or other software where you can actually just pick a different color, or even like you can do. This is a little complicated, but you can do things like luminance keys in other software where it's black and white, that kind of thing. But not in iMovie. It's just green and blue, but it works. I mean, I'm not going to be doing any industrial light and magic movie compositing in iMovie, though, maybe I'll try one day. But it's just for that basic sort of green screen stuff like that. All right. Let's see. I think that's all we have. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here again on the Sunday. And I know there's a lot of content in there. And if things didn't make sense, go back and watch the replay. I highly recommend you watch the replay because I think this is a useful technique for a lot of situations in iMovie. And yes, you can do this in other applications like even Keynote, but that's how you do it in iMovie if you don't want to jump out into another application. All right. Well, people, depending on where you're at, go get yourself some lunch. And thanks again. And I will see you next week for another educational live stream.